Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to see 5 more questions for practicing for CKA exam. So without further delay, let's get started. Question 11. Create a persistent volume with the given specification. Volume name is given, storage, access mode, host path. So let's see how to create persistent volume. So first of all, go into documentation, search for PV, and here go to this link, configure a pod to use persistent volume for a storage. If you go down, you get the YAML file for persistent volume. Copy this, go to the cluster. Here I'll go into CKA folder which I created for this. Then I'll create YAML file. Usually this is the naming convention I follow. Question number.pv.yaml. Okay, so whatever information is given, just key in that quickly. So persistent volume name is PV Analytics. Then label I don't need. Storage is default manual. Then I'll change it to 100 MI. Then it's a read write one here, but I need read write mini. So those are the changes, and one more is CKA and data analytics. Okay, so just verify once and then go ahead and create this persistent volume. K create or kubectl create -v and the file name. So kubectl get PV, the persistent volume is created, and you can just verify the details. One is the name of the persistent volume, then storage capacity, and then read write menu. And you can even describe persistent volume and describe PV analytics, and you can see the host path as well. So that's it for the question. Let's move on to the next one. Question 12. Create a new service account with the name PV viewer. Grant this service account access to list all persistent volume in the cluster by creating cluster role. Then create a cluster role binding. And then next, using this, create a pod called PV viewer with the image Redis and service account PV viewer in the default namespace. So first create service account, kubectl create service account. SA is a short form for service account. Then service account name is PV viewer. Okay, the service account is created. You can just verify that. You can see service account exists now. So next, create cluster role. So kubectl create cluster role, and what you can do is you can just do -h and C command, imperative command, so that becomes easy for you to create using imperative command. Kubectl create cluster role, name of the cluster role, then verb and resource, and resource group is persistent volume in this case, right? And we don't need resource name because we are not specifying any persistent volume, but it is in general all the persistent volume. So let's do that. So kubectl create cluster role PV viewer role, then verb is equal to list, resource is equal to persistent volumes. Describe it once, describe cluster role, and you can see persistent volume we are giving access, which is a list for this through this cluster role. So now next is create cluster role binding. Kubectl or K create cluster role binding. Here again you can do -h and C command used for it. So cluster role binding, name of the cluster role binding, then cluster role and service account. If you see service account, it expect in this format, namespace and service account name. So let's do it. binding, and name is PV viewer role binding, and make sure you are using the exact same names. Role binding, then cluster role name is PV viewer role, and then service account, and the naming convention should be default and PV viewer, which is SA, which is service account. So you just make sure that you are putting namespace first and then SA name. Okay, so cluster role binding is created as well. You can even describe this. Describe cluster role binding, and what is the name of it is PV viewer role binding. Okay, you can see that service account PV viewer, which is in namespace default, is bind with cluster role PV viewer role. Okay, that is done for the first part of the question. Then second is you create a pod called PV viewer with the image redis and use service account PV viewer. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So first let's create a YAML file. Run PV viewer image is redis, dry run is equal to client YAML. Okay, then 12, and just add service account name here. Service account name. Yeah, you can try remembering things, or otherwise you can just search for service account and you can see it yourself. Right, service account name, then PV viewer. kubectl create -m. Okay, so pod is created. Just make sure that is the case. So we can see pod is running. So if you describe this pod, or just get pod PV viewer, then YAML, so you can see that service account is used. Okay, so with this we completed all the things asked in this question. Just verify. We created a service account, we created a cluster role, we created a cluster role binding, and then finally we created a PV viewer pod using the service account. So that's it for this question. So next, move on to the next one. Question 13. Create a multi-container pod alpha beta and use below information for the containers. So we are going to create two containers, container 1 and container 2, and specifications are provided with the name and image, and container 2 also requires command to be specified. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So first of all, create a YAML file, run. I'll just use first container for creating YAML file, alpha beta. Then image will be nginx, and that's it. Client -YAML, just make sure it's good, then put it in YAML file 13.pod.yaml. So go into this. Then first of all, for first container, the name should be alpha. So just change that. Okay, so I'll add one more container. Image should be PC box, name is beta, and here additionally we want to specify command sleep 4800. Right, so that's it. So command you can specify when you are creating a YAML file using dry run client, or even you can specify this way. Okay, so let's see that. We create this pod, kubectl create -f and YAML file. Okay, so pod is created. Let's verify once, and we can see that alpha beta has two containers and both are running. You can validate with describing the pod just to make sure the image and name of the containers are good. So first of all, verify how many containers. Two containers, alpha and beta. Alpha has image, which is nginx, and beta has image busy box, and beta also has command specified sleep 4800, right? So that's it. And then pod name is alpha beta. So with this, we are good with this particular question. Let's move ahead with the next one. Question 14, create a pod called non-root pod using image radius and use below security context for the pod. So let's see how to do this. So for creating a pod, let's first get YAML file. kubectl run non-root pod, then image is Redis, dry run is equal to client hyphen o YAML. Okay, and just take it in one file, manifest file. So I'll start with 14.pod.yaml. 14. Okay, so here I want to specify security context. So how to do that? Let's go to documentation again, search for security context, go into first one, configure security context for a pod or container. Right, so here you can just search for it. So how to specify security context. If you see, it is under specification and security context. So let's copy this. Control C, I'm going back, and then under specification, we'll specify security context. Run as user is good. Then FS group is good. I don't need run as group. Okay, so that's it. Go ahead and create this pod. Create -f 14, and this got created our pod. So if you just verify, you can see this pod, non-root pod is running, and you can just describe it or just get pod non. What I observed is when you describe, you're not able to see the security context. So this is the way you can verify that security context is specified. And what you can do is, as you are here, just make sure first is security context is specified, what is required, right? And second thing is just verify image radius and the name of the pod. Name of the pod is non-root pod. Okay, so that's it for this question. Let's move with the next one. Question 15, list all persistence volume sorted by capacity and write to certain file. Okay, so easiest way of doing it, just go to cheat sheet, and when you practice with cheat sheet, you will be able to narrow down to this answer very quickly. So go to quick reference, and if you search for, say, storage, okay, so list persistent volume sorted by capacity. So this is how you can do it. Control C, then go here and run it. First, see persistence volumes available, and you can see there are 4 and then 10, 90 MI, 70 MI, 100 MI is a capacity, storage capacity. So let's see when we sorted how this will look. So this is sorted, and then you can see that sorted list, and as per the question, put it in CKA pv.out. Verify output is captured. Yeah, so this is like you can directly say get it from cheat sheet. Now up to this you are done with the question, so you are good to move on to the next one. However, if you are interested to know how this sort by command is created, then you can see this. So for example, you have this command directly from cheat sheet, which says like sort by is spec.storage capacity.storage. But how quickly we can narrow down to this path? kubectl get pv, then use JSON path. Let me take all items, and then here you can do -c. First of all, if you do this, then you are getting all the paths, but it's very difficult to just see all the paths together, right? So it has all the details, so we don't really need that. So instead, what you can do is add -c single quotation paths, and this is going to show you only paths, and then you can do grep and find out whatever you need, like for example storage. So if you see it here, let me do it again. Yeah, so if you see it here, you can directly see, okay, spec, capacity, storage. This is how you should reach to that particular path. Let me just delete this, and for example go here, spec, capacity, storage. Okay, so these are showing storage for all the PVs together, right? And this storage we are going to use for sorting it out. So what you can do is same thing, kubectl get PV sort by and dot spec. If you see sort by dot spec, this complete thing. So I think like this is going to help you when you want to use JSON path in your exam or when you are practicing. So that's it. I just want to give this tip. Okay, thank you. Okay, see you again with yet another exciting tutorial. Keep learning, keep sharing what you learn, and thanks for watching.